Welcome to Shardcast, the Brandon Sanderson podcast. I'm Eric, and joining us is Ian.
Hey, I'm WeiryWriter.
Also joining us is Matt.
Hey, I'm Comatose. Good to be here.
I thought you were gonna not say hey. I thought you were gonna say something else. Matt.
Yeah, no, I decided on hey.
Okay. I'm trying to get these guys to be more silly. And also returning is the wonderful Alyx.
Hi, I'm FeatherWriter, and I feel like I was just put on the spot because I thought I needed to make a joke there and be silly all of a sudden.
Oh, don't worry. I mean, we'll have stupid jokes later for sure.
The pressure.
We have both writer twins.
We do.
Oh, yeah,
The
yeah.
writer twins unite.
Yeah, that's right. I'm Chaos. And just so you know, you can always ping us on Discord and the forums if you want to come chat with us anytime. Today, we are going to talk about Moash in Oathbringer. Spoiler warning for Oathbringer, as usual, because there's a lot to talk about Moash and Oathbringer, and it's been interesting to look at people's reactions about Moash, to say the least. I would rate it
very interesting.
Very interesting. But before we do that, we like to talk about the news. And there's actually a lot of news, but just some that has been terribly publicized. And so we're going to blow your mind right here, right now. Dan Wells, one of Brandon's writer friends, who's one of the hosts of Writing Excuses, he sent out a newsletter. And the mind-blowing thing is that Dan is going to be co-writing the Apocalypse Guard. Apparently. What? That's crazy.
It's exciting.
Well, at the Oathbringer release, he did mention that he was sending it, like his draft of the first novel, to Dan for advice.
Oh, advice. Yeah.
Because according to Brandon, Dan is the best writer he knows.
Okay.
And he's like, Dan, what's wrong with my book? And I guess that turned into Dan co-writing it with him.
Okay, that kind of allays my concerns, because it's a little concerning with Alcatraz 6 kind of like being given to Jancy Patterson. And I'm just, we want to read Brandon books. We don't want it to be like a co-authorship where someone else is basically writing it and Brandon's name's just not on it. And I don't know if that would happen, but
I do think like Dan's style is kind of, I think it would mesh well with Brandon's YA style, like the style Brandon usually uses for his YA stuff.
That's true.
So I think I'm hoping it's a good fit.
Yeah.
I think also probably it helps that they're not only friends and they've not only read each other's work, but because of Writing Excuses, they know a lot about like each other's process and a lot of like the stuff.
Well,
so I think that'll help too.
Dan, I think, was in the original writing group for Brandon. Like that was they were both on the leading
I believe
edge
so.
at BYU and stuff. So
I think they're still in each other's writing group.
Yep.
So they have a deep understanding of, probably, this is a thing that makes Dan tick, that, these stylistic things, and these are the Brandon stylistic ticks, and so they could probably merge it pretty well.
And I think it makes sense, too, since Brandon has said that he was having trouble making Apocalypse Guard work. I think it's cool, instead of hitting his head against the wall with it, looking to kind of creative solutions, and working with someone obviously he trusts and who's
And theoretically, this just means we get more Brandon books. Because if some of his time that would be spent on writing these books is being spent by someone else, then he can just spend that time on more books.
And let's face it, no one's going to be mad if Brandon's spending more time writing Cosmere, because
that's true.
We all want more Cosmere.
My worry is that if he's like kind of co-writing with others, he's not getting that enough enough breathe time between Cosmere books, because he said that that recharge time is really important. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I guess Brandon will just be, I want to write a lot of books. This is the way I can write more books, so people get more stuff, because I need to write a lot of them, and I've promised a lot of Cosmere books, and I want to write them all. Yes. So I guess that's not a bad thing, but I just hope it will work well with Brandon's process.
Be a fun experiment.
Yeah, and so I guess we'll get 2 collabs very soon with the last Alcatraz book and this one. No info about what publisher Apocalypse Guard would be or any news. It just said, hey, they're co-writing it. This isn't even posted on Dan's blog either, so it's just been in a newsletter. So, but it's not April Fool's, it's real. So, all right. Let's talk about Moash. So now we are in the spoiler zone. I don't know what voice that was. But
it was the spoiler zone voice.
Spoiler zone. Yeah. We don't need audio cues as we switch from one thing to another. I'll just do something weird. Okay. So where did we leave off with Moash in Words of Radiance?
He was fleeing the Shattered Plains.
Yep, because
he attempted to assassinate the king and failed.
And Kaladin, Drusil, it was awesome. And Graves and Elhokar, Graves and Moash ran away.
And from also a note, while running away, not during the assassination part, Moash finds out that he's now part of the diagram. Didn't know what that was, but congrats, buddy, you're in it now. Have fun.
Which apparently did not matter in any way for this book. Not in any way. Which is
because
it's
the diagram
almost disappointing in that way, because that would have been cool, but Moash just turned into a completely different different
role. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you kind of wonder, like, with big left turns like that, if in like an earlier version or in an earlier thought process, maybe Moash did have more with the diagram. And
that's true.
And then Kaladin needed to come back sooner than he was originally going to. So Brandon thought, I want to show more of the singers. So let's get Moash in there. Or who knows?
I'm actually wondering if Moash's familiarity with what the diagram is might come into play later, especially if he's working with the singers now.
Well, does he?
That's an angle.
Is he that familiar? He's not really.
I think Graves told him some stuff.
Yeah,
about it's, what it is, but he doesn't know.
It's not as if like Graves was in that role that could tell the singers this. And also, I don't know how much that matters, because Odium just knows, and Odium can just talk to the Fused.
That's also true.
Like, it doesn't even matter.
Going back to the big left turn, there is a word of Brandon out there somewhere that Moash's plot in book 2 was originally going to be in book 3, but Brandon brought it forward. So his being complicit in an act to kill Elhokar was originally going to be in book 3.
Like that
he was kind of complicit in killing Elhokar in book 3.
Hey,
I think the failure was the more important part of that.
But I getcha.
It's interesting because originally Dalinar was supposed to be book 5, right? And
exactly.
It's really hard to imagine the Dalinar flashbacks not being what it turned out to be. Mm-hmm. And so I wonder if there was supposed to be a book of Moash with the diagramists, and then later stuff happened, and then he joined the singers, and that would have been like book 4, but it all just kind of got maybe crunched together more. I don't know. Mm-hmm. I have absolutely no idea if that's actually a thing, but Dalinar was book 5, that would have been very different, and I don't know.
And Moash's arc does complement Dalinar's struggles a lot with which we'll talk a little more about later, but with the blame and the responsibility for what you do.
It absolutely does.
I just think it's important to remember that, like, yes, Brandon knows what happens in each book, but until like he writes an actual outline, that's all fluid.
Mm-hmm.
for the most part.
Yeah, I think he had a very short outline for, like, 1-page outlines for the rest of the books with, like, major plot points and not, like, intense things at all.
Yeah.
Just very short, but I don't know. So it's just weird. There's just such a sharp turn to the singers. But to be fair, in some ways this is more interesting because the singers I thought were really fascinating in this book. Just seeing that first Kaladin scene where, we're hunting the Voidbringers. They're just playing a game? What? It's super weird and cool that you don't know what's going on.
And I do remember when Kaladin's arc with the singers finished, feeling like I was excited for Kaladin to get back to Urithiru and the rest of the cast, but I was kind of like, but I do want more of the singers.
Yeah, and so this is a good way this is a good way to get that. But we're kind of jumping ahead a little bit. So blow by blow.
Yeah, that's true.
The Fuse come in, just completely kill everyone in the caravan, but because Moash has trained with Kaladin, he's good at fighting surges and actually kills one of them with his shard blade. But everyone else, all the other diagrams, they're totally dead. And
wait, he doesn't kill one with a shard blade. He uses the spear, right?
Oh no, you're right.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
right.
I was just thinking, can the Fused come back from a shard blade kill? This is off topic, but anyway, yeah,
No.
it was a spear.
It's good.
I think they
good
can now.
Well, yeah, wouldn't that have come up? Wouldn't have the solution to the Fuse just been kill all of them with shard blades if that was the solution?
That's true.
Like that. Yeah. But anyway, Moash bests a Fused. And then he eventually is just alone and eventually meets up with the singer group that Kaladin met with in part 1. Am I missing a step here? Am I missing a step?
No,
I think it happens pretty
so.
fast.
Yeah.
Well, he's
him
brought
wandering.
back and he's put with the workers, and then he sees the group Kaladin met with being treated more
Like crap,
harshly.
yeah.
Because
Well,
Because
actually,
with
before
Kaladin.
that, he runs into someone he knew before he went to the Shattered Plains, who's like, brings him into like the secret leadership of the rebellion.
Oh, sure. Yeah, right.
and it's
And he's
Light
just like-
Eyes.
Yeah, like,
And
why
he's
are
like,
you?
nah, son.
I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm good. But he meets with the singers. Oh, by the way, I don't know if this has come up explicitly in the podcast, but in book 1, we called them Parshendi and Parsh. Then in book 2, we discovered that they call themselves listeners, but that's not true, really, because the race, the Parsh, they are called singers. That's what we get here. That's finally their name. That's what Leshwi says, so that's their name. And the Parshendi, that group that was on the Shattered Plains that weren't enslaved, those are the listeners. So just to be clear, if that wasn't obvious. So feel free, when you're talking about the race, call them singers, because that's their name.
Mhm.
So
All listeners are singers, but not all singers are listeners.
right, and that's kind of like the end thing with Venli, where she's like, let me tell you what it means to be a listener. And she's saying that to other singers. They don't know.
Mhm.
Yeah, so then Moash is struggling with his singer friends who do not particularly like him very much. But he stands up to one of the taskmasters, and the Fused notice that, and notice his passion. And then Moash talks with Leshwi, who is one of the Sane, which is the Fused who still have their brains. They're in charge, basically.
And she is the singer that he killed.
Yeah. She comes back. The Fused come back.
Body
and stuff.
snatchers.
Yeah, body snatchers. And then Leshwi just totally teases Moash. Well, there's a few things cool in that Leshwi scene, which is awesome. First of all, she just lifts Moash into the sky, just like, hey, what's up?
Yep.
Not intimidating at all. But Leshwi says that Moash is a singer name, which I love. That was
Mm-hmm.
just seeing like the Moash Leshwi you have that
Eshenai.
Eshenai. You have those H's a lot, so it makes sense.
Mm-hmm. And it is kind of cool because we've already seen how the singers are more similar to the people they've been around than we expected. And so also learning that even some of their language and dialect has worked, like their names have worked their way into common parlance and to the Alethi culture is kind of cool.
Well, if you think about it, the Dawn chant was the Dawn singer language, and that was a foundational language.
All humans on Roshar, so it's probably very subtle in a lot of ways. Leshwi then completely trolls us. This all happens in part 2. Leshwi trolls us about, hey, let me tell you why we fight, and teasing at the Recreants, which thankfully we do get, but Moash knows about the Recreants right then. Yeah, that would have been bad.
It would have been awful. Yep.
And then that's really how part 2 ends, right? And the singers are kind of gearing up and kind of surrounding Kholinar.
Yeah.
And then in part 3, we don't get any Moash viewpoints.
No.
But Moash was being prepared in part 2.
I thought you said no Moash, and I was like, what?
No Moash viewpoints.
Viewpoints.
Yeah.
It's different.
I'm really tired, so it's entirely possible I say something completely dumb, but I know you guys will keep me straight. How about we talk about Elhokar a little bit? No reason, just talk about Elhokar a little bit before we talk about what happens in part 3. So, Ian, what happened with Elhokar and up to this point?
Let's see. His uncle kind of married his mom, which was kind of weird.
I mean, when you put it like that, yeah, that's true.
And Elhokar tries to not seize back control, but assert his influence.
He's trying to suck less, really.
Yes.
In part 1, he's after the end of Words of Radiance, he's trying. That was that whole thing with him talking with Kaladin, how do you be a good leader? And he's truly trying. Dalinar tries to take power away and just with this High King stuff, but that's not super important.
High King was Elhokar's stupid idea to remedy the situation by
that is true. I forgot. Yeah, that was Elhokar's idea.
Yes, and his rationale was okay, you are in control in Urithiru, but once we get back to Elhokar, I'm in charge. You have to listen to me.
Well, it's preserving his role as king, I think, because Dalinar was becoming the de facto, or already was the de facto leader of...
Every other world leader has said that. When we encountered, yeah.
Although it is interesting, he's the de facto leader of the Alethi who came with him to Urithiru. There's still all these... There's still some high princes who have not...
well, true.
Yeah.
The lame ones.
There's not much Elhokar left, though, as we see.
No.
Anyway, off topic.
Not much Elhokar.
There we go. There's the joke.
The joke. We got it.
Great. Fantastic. 10 out of 10. The dislikes are just appearing right now.
Oh, excellent. Bring them on.
And so Elhokar then wants to free his kingdom. He wants to go with this strike team to Kholinar to go see what's up and free it. And
save his lovely wife, who is doing nothing wrong.
Oh, yeah.
And
right.
is definitely being held captive or something.
Oh, yeah. Definitely being held captive.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen that GIF set of I have never done anything wrong in my life. And the other person's I know this and I love you. That's a student in Elhokar right now. It's cool. She's never done anything wrong.
It would be really fun to see.
He knows this and loves her.
What that relationship would look like, because that would be a toxic relationship. I feel.
Yeah, and I think to a certain extent he knew that, but he's I need her.
Yasna did want to kill her, So
yeah, I mean, that's true.
I feel like the problem with Elhokar is that he really does try, and he's always tried, but he's a terrible judge of character, and he always gets manipulated because he trusts the wrong people, and I think Sadeas is one of them, and I'm pretty sure Aesudan was one of them,
That's
too.
kind of like the opposite of what we said about Adolin, remember? In the Love Triangle podcast, where Adolin basically is always spot on with character, and Elhokar is the opposite, basically, which screws him over.
Yeah.
So, Kaladin, Shallan, and Elhokar, they, did I miss someone? Adolin. Yep. All of them.
Some squires.
Yep. Squires.
Some random lady with a blue name. She's probably not important.
What? They're getting to Kholinar. We haven't met her yet.
We're not in Kholinar. Okay.
Yeah, we're not in Kholinar yet. But some squires of Shallan, well, they turn out to be squires. And squires from Bridge 4, they go along to Kholinar. Very amusing. They're at Adolin's tailor, because that's the only person Adolin can trust.
Because it's Adolin.
That's one of my favorite lines in the book.
It's so good.
And it is interesting that the members of Bridge 4 who go are Scar and Drahi. Right? It's Scar, or is it?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's
No,
those two.
Scar and Drahi.
Scar and Drahi,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Because
and
they
both
were the ones who
survived.
saved Adolin at the end of Words of Radiance.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
So-
right.
yeah. So it's
Yep.
interesting. Like, it makes sense they're going because they're the best fighters aside from Kaladin and Moash in the original
and
Bridge 4.
Scar was a squire, like he started to breathe in Stormlight. So we also
Same with Drahi.
right.
But what's interesting is they were also the ones who were, because they were good at fighting, who were closest with Moash in Bridge 4. Like, those three were often kind of
true.
a group.
That's true.
Because they were, like, Kaladin's, like, best three kind of spear fighters.
Yep. It is interesting that we saw the Bridge 4 viewpoints in Part 2. Like, that couldn't have happened later because we got stuff to do right now in Part 3.
Mm-hmm.
Same with the Moash viewpoints.
And it's an interesting parallel between the Bridge 4 viewpoints and the Moash viewpoints. Like, even if you go to their like chapter icons, they're very similar with one's
with the patch
very important difference.
Oh, we totally skipped over that Moash ripped off the Bridge 4 patch because he couldn't feel like because he betrayed Kaladin.
Yeah. I'm trying to. He didn't throw it in the fire, though. He was told to throw it in the fire, I think. I don't think he actually did it, though. I think he put it in his pocket. I feel like that was significant.
I don't remember.
I don't remember either. I'll look it up. Let's keep going.
Okay. Anyway, Elhokar is like pretty smart in Kholinar for the most part. I mean, he still believes his wife is captured, which is a bad judge of character, but he comes up with pretty sensible plans
and he listens to Kaladin and everyone.
Yeah,
for he's their input.
And I always thought it was really good with Elhokar. Like you kind of like him that he's now trying so hard and he's being sensible, and that's nice.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
Moash did not throw the patch in the fire, but he was thinking about doing it as the Parshandy descending.
So he still has the patch, then, presumably.
Yeah.
Possibly. Yeah.
Well, I mean, with the singers, he might have needed to get rid of it, but
yeah.
Because the quote is, Moash sagged, patch in his fingers, he should throw that thing in the fire. Storms, he should throw himself in the fire.
Oh, yeah, right.
Which is really kind of cool because...
Moash.
we'll get to our reactions. Very soon.
It is interesting, though, with the patch, because his, like, tattoo is in a similar place... Because his tattoo's also on his arm, right?
On his arm, yeah.
So
it's on his shoulder.
Yeah.
Yep,
so
he didn't get it on his forehead like the rest.
Yeah. So it is kind of interesting that he rips the patch off, but he can't take the Bridge 4 out of him. And so this quote kind of almost has a double meaning when he says he should throw himself in the fire, because that's the only way he's going to get the Bridge 4 out of him is by destroying himself.
I agree with that, but that also gave me an idea when we need to talk about this name change. happen.
Oh, good point.
A thought just occurred that makes my dislike of that maybe change. Anything else about Elhokar before the moment?
I think just like him and Moash, I think, have been on kind of divergent or comparative paths. Like they're both really struggling, I think, with their place in where they've ended up.
Oh, I guess that's true. Yeah.
Elhokar is struggling in his place of privilege, and Moash has been struggling in kind of with the unfortunate events that have happened to him. So they have this, of course, historical connection with Roshon, which is also tied in with the tragedies in Kaladin's life. So those three are very tied together. So I think it makes sense that they all kind of come together in this moment. In the palace.
Yeah, Alyx, why don't you tell us what happens in the palace? What happened there? I'm sure it wasn't very important.
This is the part that I get? Okay.
Well, I guess.
Kaladin is trying to escort the queen, sort of, not really, and her son to safety. Gives up on Aesudan pretty quick because she's nuts.
Because Yelignar is in her.
So, there's like an unmade doing something there. Yeah. He's like, I'm tapping out of this. And Elhokar is reunited with his son, and then out of nowhere, Kaladin realizes that it's his old singer squad who he was with, and they're in the palace.
Yeah, when the siege is happening. Yeah, they're fighting.
And he starts freaking out about the fact that all of his human friends are killing all of his singer friends, and then at the moment of this emotional pain for Kaladin, Moash steps out of nowhere and kills Elhokar in the middle of him saying his radiant oaths as a Lightweaver.
Yeah, Matt, why don't you
go
read
ahead,
this?
yes.
Why don't you read it?
So, Kaladin is numb. He's stressed, as Alyx was saying, because all his friends are killing each other. And so, Elhokar had fallen to his knees. In one arm, he held his terrified son. In the other, he held a sheet of paper, a sketch. And this sketch is the one that Shallan drew of him, where she's drawing where people look more noble. And so this is like his true self that he's looking at on the sketch. Right. So Kaladin could almost hear Elhokar stuttering the words, life before death. The hair on Kaladin's neck rose. Elhokar started to glow softly. Strength before weakness. Do it, Elhokar, Kaladin whispered. Journey before.
And then he says it, and he becomes a radiant, and everyone lives happily ever after.
That's right. That is exactly what happened. Exactly we don't need to continue reading on in this paragraph.
But no, figure emerges from the battle. A tall, lean man. Interesting. Kaladin is also often described as tall and lean. So familiar. Gloom seemed to cling to Moash, who wore a brown uniform like the Parshmen. For a heartbeat, the battle pivoted on him. Wall guard behind him, broken palace guard before him. Moash, no, Kaladin whispered. He couldn't move. Stormlight bled from him, leaving him empty, exhausted. Lowering his spear, Moash ran Elhokar through the chest.
I don't know why I'm laughing, but it's really kind of funny in its horrible tragedy.
Heck this is Brandon Sanderson.
This is one of those moments, though, where, like, Brandon's writing, it's just, like, the emotion of it is so juicy that even though it's just destroying you, you can't help but enjoy it on some level. Because
I think the description of the battle pivoting around him is so cinematic too.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can just see how
cinematic
the movie would be shot right there as Moash emerges. Like,
I like the line about how Gloom clung to him.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah.
Which is also similar. I think in book 1, Kaladin attracts Gloomspren in his depression at one point. Like
it's in part 1 of.
So there's these nice parallels going on with as
Kaladin
well.
And Moash, yeah.
Yes. And then Elhokar in the middle,
Yeah.
Kaladin calling Elhokar to radiance and Moash to death.
And then
and he was going to be a light weaver.
Yeah. Yep. Elhokar, if you remember, saw weird figures in book 1, which were basically cryptics. So so we didn't see that at all in book 2. But
I feel like a lot of people kind of forgot about that theory.
Yeah.
Is it just a reference?
He mentioned that there were shadows, but they went away when Kaladin came.
Oh, that does make sense though. But it is easy to forget through Words of Radiance. That was one of our common theories post Way of Kings. That Elhokar is going to be a Radiant
it is interesting. It is interesting.
Choice too.
Yep. Yeah, and with his connection to kind of Shallan's drawing that she does of him, and also out of the group, he kind of takes the best to his disguise when they're going into Kholinar. So I think,
and at one point he does draw a map, and Shallan's like, "Oh wow, that's actually pretty good."
Mm-hmm. So we've seen some tidbits.
But I think it's important to note that he was a light weaver, not a windrunner.
Yes.
Because the divine attributes of windrunners are leading and protecting.
Yeah, that's true.
Which is he's not good at. That's not
true.
him.
That's really good.
And I think one of his truths was going to be like, I am a terrible king or something.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that all would be great, except that Moash just stabbed him in the chest. And then killed him. It says the king's shard blade appeared from mist and clanged to ground beside him. Elhokar, king of Elhokar, was dead. Moash pulled the spear free, glanced at the shard blade. He kicked it aside. He looked at Kaladin, then quietly made the Bridge 4 salute. Wrists tapped together. The spear he held dripped with Elhokar's blood.
Heck you, Brandon Sanderson.
Oh, thanks for keeping it clean, Alyx. Thanks.
I don't say dirty swars. Listen.
You can say storm you. That's fine.
Braze you.
Damnation. This damnation book.
This is the most heartbreaking death that Brandon's wrote, for sure.
Doesn't Moash kick Gavinor away as well? Like, literally kicks a baby child? Is that not there? Shoves him aside with his foot or something? Okay, so here's the quote where it says, Moash pinned the king to the ground, shoving aside the weeping child prince with his foot. Literally kicking a child. Okay, cool.
Oh,
thanks. Okay. Thanks, Moash. Thanks.
Great. He's a swell guy.
Good job.
And then he, stabs Elhokar through the eye as well, just to make sure.
Yeah, just to be sure.
Yep, and so that's why we were talking about Moash. But yep, so Elhokar's dead. Moash finally gets his vengeance. That classy Bridge 4 salute. Kind of foreshadowing what I think a lot of people feel, that Moash will kind of be the antagonist for Kaladin, maybe?
Mm-hmm.
Well, especially once we see what at the end of Oathbringer.
What happens at the end then, Ian?
He kills Yezrian, the herald of the Windrunners.
Oh, yeah.
Using a weird knife thing that
with a gem
is related kind of to hemalurgy.
Of course. Thanks, Brandon, for that great word of Brandon. Of course.
Weaselly word of Brandon, as these things go.
Yeah.
And also, due to other things, the Fuse stole Yezrian's Honor Blade that Bridge 4 had. And it ends with Leshwi offering Moash the Honor Blade after murdering Yezrian, saying that...
Do you want me to read that?
Yeah, go. Yeah.
Okay.
Why don't you just read it?
She held something before herself in two hands. A long, slender weapon. A shard blade with a gentle curve, its metal largely unornamented. Elegant, yet somehow humble, as shard blades went. Moash had known it as the sword of the assassin in white. Now he recognized it as something else. The blade of Yezriza, Honor Blade. Moash reached for it hesitant, and Leshwi hummed a warning rhythm. If you take it, you die. Moash will be no more. Moash's world is no more, he said, taking the blade by the hilt. You might as well join it in the tomb. Vyre, she said, join us in the sky. You have a work. She and the others lashed themselves upward.
And if you didn't notice, actually in part 5, in the giant list of cast members, it's not Moash, it's Vyre, actually.
Yep.
Yeah.
People are like, who's Vyre? We have a new character getting a viewpoint? And it's like, not quite.
I always thought that this was really dumb, personally. Why did... He has a singer name. Why can't he keep the singer name? That's always been my opinion, usually.
Thinking about it, Brandon has said that resurrection and rebirth are
big themes.
One of the primary themes of the Cosmere. And this is a different take on that, a different interpretation of being reborn, taking a new name.
He's also stepping into, when we talked about him as an antagonist for Kaladin, in Words of Radiance, Kaladin's main foil in some ways was Seth. Like a lot of things were working up to their big fight with lashings. And now the sword is going to Moash. So he's kind of like he's taking up Seth's sword in a way and stepping into that role as well as more of a foil than he already is.
You know, Moash is going to be a lot better of a villain than Amaram was, because Kaladin didn't talk with Amaram at all in this book. Really, we did get that fight, which was pretty good. But it's not the same as like Szeth and Words of Radiance, where you meet once and they're like, oh crap, that was intense, and then the final battle with Szeth is really awesome. Like, it's not like that at all, really.
Yeah. But yeah, we're gonna get something good there.
Well, yeah, because he can use surges now. My thought with the tattoo was, if he's now thinking himself as Vyre,
will the Stormlight heal the ink?
Well, I eventually, because I think his spiritual aspect will change to reflect that, to see who he thinks himself is. Like that eventually changes. It's
like how Kaladin won't, like the tattoo won't take on Kaladin because he thinks of himself as a slave so much.
Right, exactly.
He can't let his brands be covered up.
Right. So the Bridge 4 brand might eventually be healed on Moash, just because he thinks himself as a different person, which could be a cool moment. So, how about we just talk about thoughts on the whole Moash arc? What'd you think, Matt? Let's start with you. What'd you think?
The first time I was reading it, I think I was really interested in other plot lines. So I've heard some criticisms that it's slow, and I feel that because I wanted to get back to what everyone else was doing, and Moash was kind of he was a new viewpoint, someone I didn't care about as much. In hindsight though, as I've been going back over the book and looking at things, I really like how he acts as a kind of anti-Kaladin. And I'm still, like, obviously I think he's done awful things, but I'm kind of the camp that Dalinar's done awful things. We have a couple people who have done awful things. So I still think, I'm not sure if Moash will be redeemed or if his story will be the redemption that could have happened but didn't. But I think there's kind of more complexity and more journeying on that plot line, and I'm interested to see where it goes.
We'll definitely talk about redemption. Ian, what did you think?
As a character, I think Moash is fascinating, and it's a very well-written... He's a very well-written character. He makes you feel things. Unfortunately, the things he makes me feel is that he should go die in a fire.
Because in a fire.
Yeah, which he suggests for himself, so...
Yes.
Yeah, that's true.
I was very amused when we read that out, because it's like, yes.
I agree.
You should jump in the fire.
He misheard you. He thought you said jump into the fire, and that's why he decided to do it, you know?
It makes sense. Alyx, what about you?
So I actually am one of the I think I need to clarify. I'm one of the people who said I was bored by the Moash plot line, but I think it was more just the beginning of it. And I can see, I know we're going to talk about this a little later as well, but I can see the like narrative necessity of those chapters, but they weren't very interesting to me. And I think part of it is Moash's mindset. Like, it makes a lot of sense that he's in just this kind of, yeah, I'm okay with whatever. Just give me orders. I don't care about anything. I don't care about me. I don't care about the people I'm with.
It's easy to dislike a character like that.
It's easy for that to be boring really for a reader because you're like, well, you don't care. Why should I? I don't know how they could have been fixed. Like, I don't think they should have been removed. They were chapters that the book needed, but in reading them, I just was kind of, it's all right. It's okay.
I think that's an example of how a book can't be everything for every reader. There are going to be parts of the book that people don't like.
That are necessary for the story.
There are parts of Oathbringer I don't like. I think the Hearthstone sequence was rushed and not good. But
yeah. We should do a podcast on stuff we didn't like as much. That'd be fun. Yeah. We've been very effusive as you know on the podcast.
Because it's like the things we don't like don't outweigh the things we do like.
Yeah, in our opinion.
We like this book because there is so much that we like. It outweighs the relatively few things we didn't.
Yeah. Alyx, I wanted to ask, because you said that the beginning of the Moash chapters were kind of boring. How much of that do you think is the left turn that we talked about, of Moash going in a completely different direction? Was it like a failure of expectations, that what happened just really wasn't at all your expectations?
I don't think it was necessarily... Like, I wasn't, like, looking forward to the diagram stuff with Moash or anything.
Okay.
But I think the problem was those early chapters, there doesn't feel like there's a purpose to them, aside from Brandon needs to show the singers and their culture from within, outside of a combat perspective, because all of the other characters, when they're interacting with singers, it's like a battle, or they're the fused or coming from them from the sky. So it was a good way of seeing
Kaladin stuff before.
Yeah, we had like the start of it with Kaladin, and Moash kind of picked up where Kaladin's work left off with that. What a terrible way to phrase that.
More ways than one.
More the ways than one.
Yeah, sure did.
And so, like, it was important to see, you know, this is what the fused are like, this is what the singers are like, and this is what it's like to be one of their human slaves. But, like, Moash personally wasn't accomplishing anything or working toward anything or trying. And I was like, okay, cool. You know, he's back to being a slave. He's walking around. He's talking to people he knew.
It is interesting, I think, that he kind of embraces and finds comfort in just being told what to do and just following orders, when that's the opposite of the Windrunner's kind of leadership focus, right? It really is. So he really is kind of an anti-Windrunner in a lot of ways.
I see what all of you are saying, but I'm going to go out on record and say, I really enjoyed reading all of the Moash chapters, and I thought it was fascinating, and I love Moash. It was great. I loved it. I mean, yeah, I do kind of hate him, but it was just awesome, him totally murdering Elhokar. It was awesome. I love it. I love characters in pain and how you can't get a more painful death. Brandon will probably step it up with, like, Kaladin or Shallan dies. I'm sure that'll be...
Wow! Get out. You're banned from this podcast.
I'm just saying... Do you really think all the main characters are going to survive at book 10? I don't know.
I
don't know.
No more dead colons 2018.
Kaladin's not a colon.
Not yet.
I say this every book, and every book, one of the colons dies. That's why we have so many, so there's one for each book.
Which colon died in book 2?
I thought Yasna did. That was my dead colon for that book.
Well, I mean,
the epilogue fixed it, sorta, I guess.
To be fair, I'll give you that one. It's like a 2.5. 2.5.
Dramatic colon death that you had to read all of the chapters because she was dead. Anyway, we're off topic.
That's true. But I don't know. maybe I just like really love villains.
I do too.
Like, no, Alyx is the one that's supposed to be in love with villains.
I don't understand how you could love a villain. They're the bad guys. You're not supposed to like them. It's weird.
If this is the first podcast you're listening to, guys, Alyx has many villain crushes on, let's list, Odium.
Odium is her husband.
Yeah, she was like, I think, I remember her messaging me at the time, like, I think I have a crush on Odium, like in that part too, when he appears. I'm pretty sure that's what happened.
Being aired.
Yep. Welcome to the podcast.
She also loves Mraize.
Yeah, but
Mraize is unquestionably the best. How could you not love Mraize?
And also
that's kind of true. I do love Mraize too.
Yeah.
Nail's great too. Yeah.
But not to get off task though, but it's interesting that I didn't mind the kind of depression that Moash was going through, because when I first read Way of Kings, the part 1 of Kaladin's kind of rough. Now when I reread, I really enjoy reading that, and it's really not as long as it feels, but sometimes the first time you read it, I'm not going to judge anyone who thinks that the Kaladin viewpoint is like, holy crap, this is really depressing to read. But I didn't mind it with Moash at all, and maybe it's just because I was so invested in learning about the singers that I just didn't care. Maybe, I don't know. But that just really worked, and I thought it was all very interesting, and I thought the Leshwi stuff was really cool. I just still never really understood why it was so important. Yes, you are dead if you take this honor blade. Like, that has never needed to be the case before, but sure, I guess. Why not? I guess we're just having a sentence to explain that. Sure.
Yeah, it's just a symbolic thing, I think.
I guess, but it just, that, to me, felt like that needed a little more. It's like, we just have one sentence. I guess we're just supposed to go along with that. Okay.
I will say it's kind of interesting that you found Kaladin's early chapters harder to get through and really liked Moash's. Whereas when I first read Way of Kings, I cared about nothing but Kaladin.
Yeah, that's right.
Didn't care for Moash at all. Shocking feather news. She did not care about Renarin Colin the first time she read Way of Kings.
Blasphemy.
I know.
Blasphemy.
I'm ashamed to admit it.
This hasn't come up in the podcast yet.
It hasn't.
But, if you don't know, Alyx likes Renarin a lot.
The only nice person I like.
That should be your intro, Alyx, on the next podcast. Hi, I'm FeatherWriter. I like Renarin. There we go.
If we were using Tumblr handles, I could say I am Renarin Colin, because that's my Tumblr blog name.
That's true. That's something to do next time. To spice up our intro, you know.
I think one of the things I found Moash serving as a role is, in this book we kind of see a couple alternate Bridge 4s crop up. So first you have the singer Bridge 4 that Kaladin starts and Moash continues with, and then you have Kaladin's. He just can't help having his team. But it's
every time.
And Kaladin at the beginning, there's a line where he kind of talks about he feels out of place in Bridge 4 because he's become a radiant to them, right?
Oh, sure. Yeah,
and
that's
so
right.
he's kind of, in this book, I really see Kaladin searching for kind of a new group and for that feeling of like a fresh, like, oh, I'm becoming a leader to you, and this is all new and exciting again, with the singers and then with the Wall Guard. And then Moash is also searching for a new Bridge 4 because he ditched them. And then, of course, it all comes to a head when the two, like, new Bridge 4s kill each other. And
it makes sense to me that Kaladin would just be so crushed by that.
Definitely.
With you saying, he's looking for a new group, that just reminds me of like the multiple different groups of slaves that he tried to escape with, and they all got murdered. And
Bridge 4 was not the first Bridge 4.
If you think about that, that's you see why Kaladin would be so jaded at the beginning of Way of Kings, really. If you think about that. But it's not quite the same as his two groups murdering each other. Like that's a new level of pain.
Yeah.
Kaladin thought he couldn't get more upset about the people he loved dying, and then he found out they could kill each other instead, and it got worse.
Yep.
What's worse than killing your wife once?
Spoilers for Shadows of Self.
Yeah.
There's lots of wife killing in Cosmere books, actually.
Yeah.
It's kind of concerning.
That now that you say that, actually, maybe.
The Elhokar Moash conflict is also, I think, that two sides of Kaladin destroying each other, right? He's become ingratiated and connected to the Kolins and has actually started to like Elhokar. But then Moash has always been, like, Moash was always the person who didn't see Kaladin as, like, some crazy hero radiant, right? He was more of a friend.
Moash was always grounded. Yeah, absolutely.
And so I think having Elhokar and Moash at odds in that moment when the Singers and the Wall Guard are killing each other is, like, it's an appropriate, like, it's very
thematic.
Kind of thematic with Kaladin's internal conflicts. And so
I just to pour a little more lemon juice in this wound, someone on Tumblr actually brought up the quote, the king was Dalinar's Tian, and post Oathbringer was like, boy, he really was, wasn't he? So, reminder that Kaladin also sort of thinks of Elhokar as a Tian parallel. Just in case you'd forgotten that one.
Oh my god. That's so true. Alyx, you also had, I know we've been talking before off the podcast about responsibility, and Moash had you noticed something kind of cool about that theme about responsibility?
Yeah, I think it's obviously very important to Dalinar's plot, this idea of giving up your pain and giving up responsibility. And to the point where, like, Brandon writes, you cannot have my pain in a lot of books that he signs if people don't ask for something specific. It's one of, like, the big quotes. And I think
at every book he just signs a regular quote, and that's the Oathbringer
that's the one he picked.
Yeah.
And I think a part of, aside from just showing us kind of the new emergent singer culture, Moash is also showing this point of view, which is apparently very odious, which I think a lot of people might not have guessed that there was, like, a connection between odium's way of doing things and also giving up responsibility for your actions, saying it wasn't my fault, I didn't have a choice, I'm not responsible for that, and I don't feel guilty about it anymore, sort of thing.
Moash is trying to give up his guilt. And
right. Let me see if I can get the quote. So in chapter 47, Moash says, it felt good to just be told what to do. What happened in the Shattered Plains wasn't my fault, he thought as he hauled the sledge. I was pushed into it. I can't be blamed. These thoughts comforted him.
That's literally exactly what Odium wants Dalinar to get at the end, where it's not your fault.
And then in chapter 54, so he's with the Singers, and he talks about how their accent was so similar to that of many of the bridgemen who had been Moash's friends. Let go, Moash, something deep within him whispered. Give up your pain. It's all right. You did what was natural. You can't be blamed. Stop carrying that burden. Let go.
Hold up a second. Wait a minute. From reading Mistborn, I am always very skeptical of
voices.
Weird voices deep within people saying things that are kind of weird, and that sounds like that could definitely be Odium just saying, yeah, let go, because it's like the exact same thing that Dalinar said.
I actually have an explanation for this.
Oh, yeah?
And I think it is Moash's proximity to Kholinar. Because the other time we hear, give me your pain and your passion, Shallan is tuning into,
Ashert Marn?
Yeah, Ashert Marn.
You weren't on Darwin Mate podcast.
Yeah. So I think he might be picking up some of the waves out of Kholinar, that there's kind of this thought process in the head that's infiltrating people. Because Shallan gets it too from the Unmade.
Sure.
And they're in line with Odium, so...
Sure.
Some ways Moash is also showing, like, what, because we have this foreshadowing about the champion of Odium, and then we find out later that it's Dalinar. And so I think the other role Moash's chapters are showing is what could have happened to Dalinar had he been in a different place.
Really true.
And how Odium could have won Dalinar over had things been different.
Going back to what Alyx was saying about it possibly being Ashert Marn, Brandon has said that if Odium is influencing people on Roshar, it's probably through one of the Unmade. Because unlike with Ruin, Ruin helped create Roshar. Like, Ruin helped create Scadrial, not Roshar.
And the people on it.
Word of Brandon.
And the people on it. Like, he is
you heard it here first.
Ingrained into their very essence.
Yeah, you were telling...
Odium is not a part of people in the same way. He did not create them.
Yeah, you were saying that Odium couldn't just adjust texts on Roshar.
Yeah, it would be more difficult for him to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess this is a terrible analogy. I know, listeners, this is a bad analogy, but usually for Ruin to talk to people needed a spike, right? So
or for them to be crazy.
Right. But the Unmade are kind of very loosely kind of like a spike in letting Odium do some influence.
They serve as a bridge. They serve as a bridge.
Right. Okay, good. I'm glad that you were on.
Yeah,
I had to preface that with being kind of weird because they're not hemalurgy, probably, but
everything's
they're not
hemalurgy.
No, they're not hemalurgy.
Ooh, can we talk about hemalurgy and Moash though? Because I've had a theory about.
You know what?
Jezrien.
When else are we going to?
Why not?
Right? When else are we going to talk about it?
So, my personal thoughts on the killing of Jezrien, however you want to say it, Vorin, English, whatever, is that it was a mix of hemalurgy and fabrial technology. In that fabrials take cognitive things and suck them and hold them into gems, and hemalurgy takes spikes and sucks attributes out of people, and Jezrien is sort of both a person but also cognitive shadow Spren-like, and maybe you can merge those two magic systems.
Well, yeah, it was a weird metal in
a weird metal knife, and then the gem on the end started glowing when he was killed.
Can we name the wiki article on that knife the Jezrien stabbing knife?
I think it's Vyre's blade. Is the one I tried to.
Wouldn't Vyre's blade be the honor blade?
No,
I think it should be Vyre's knife.
Vyre's knife. Okay.
I want Jezrien stabbing knife.
Except that's a stupid name, so no.
Yeah, it's yellow white. The metal. It's yellow white.
Which is interesting.
Probably.
Which is
also
what I think.
It also trails dark smoke. And
that's right.
So what else trails dark smoke?
Oh, geez. I was seeing. Is there more of the quote there? But it had exactly that, and it had a large sapphire. Oh, a large sapphire at the pommel. So I guess if you need to do another one, maybe you need the gemstone for the other herald. If you want.
I would think so. Yeah,
that's interesting. But yellow white knife, that definitely reminds me of how Odium always appears in cold, and I'm fancy and regal. So that does make sense. Doesn't really make sense with the thrill being red, but that always felt very Odium-y and the visions of red. But
yes, red is of particular significance in the Cosmere that may or may not be relevant.
Yeah, I don't know. But I don't know, like, hemalurgy is important for the Cosmere, and not sure. I mean,
we know it works on other planets. You don't have to be a Scadrian to use it.
Mm-hmm. At the very least, I think what's going on here might be mechanically similar to how hemalurgy works. I'm not I like the theory. I'm not convinced yet that it's actual capital H hemalurgy, but I definitely think
similar mechanics works. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think that's what Brennan has said on the matter, that it is at the very least a similar mechanic, if not outright hemalurgy.
Yeah. And we've seen multiple magic systems do the same thing. Like with illusions, we have
exactly.
Yolin, Roshar, Aondor, all being able to create illusions.
Brandon said basically any illusion magic would basically be that in the concept.
Yeah.
Things like Nightblood and Shardblades, similar stuff, different magics,
What are you guys saying that if you read Cosmere books, you discover similarities of stuff?
It's almost like
that's
they're
way too
all
crazy.
In the same universe. Hear me out.
But yeah, it's like you get something by reading all these. Or you could just listen to us, guys. We'll tell you about all the things.
It's true. It's true.
So you alluded to a redemption story with Moash, Matt. And let's just talk about that on what kind of redemption and maybe what we want Moash to how we want to see his plotline go. What do you expect? And all that stuff. That's kind of what I want to end on.
Yeah. Definitely more conflicts with Kaladin. And also
we gotta see that, right?
Yeah. But also I think Brandon was very clever with how he set this up, with how this contrasts with Dalinar, because he had to be very strategic with Dalinar and when he showed us those flashbacks, because if the audience did not like Dalinar enough, when we got to see the Blackthorn, we would have been turned off of Dalinar, like we're turned off of Moash now. So part of me is kind of, I guess, critical of the visceral reactions to Moash, just because, like, Dalinar did similarly really crappy things, and he has obviously, through help with the Night Watcher and things, come to a better place. So I don't want to write Moash off. That being said, narratively, I think Moash is serving the role of the cautionary tale. I think he's going to be the redemption arc that could happen and is possible, but won't. He's traveling the road that Dalinar and Kaladin are not traveling. So that's my prediction.
I think that's a really good point about the redemption arc that could have been. Because the number one thing a redemption arc requires is admitting that, hey, I did something wrong. Like, admitting that you have to be redeemed. From Moash's perspective right now, like, why would I need to be redeemed? I did the right thing. Or at least the bad things I did, I was forced into it. It wasn't my fault.
Although you do see him, I think, struggling with that. Like, I don't think he goes right to... Like, I think that is where he ends up.
It's a struggle, but he eventually does
chooses
in that odious way. Yeah.
But another reason why I don't think he's going to necessarily get a redemption arc is because I think Venli is going to get the redemption arc.
Yes.
I think she's going to play that role of agent of odium turning to the side of the good guys.
Yeah, that really wouldn't work to have two of those, really,
and
at all.
Venli has also done some pretty awful stuff, so it's not like we're getting a less powerful redemption arc in her.
She literally caused the desolation.
And
pretty much.
I think it would have happened eventually anyway.
Well, eventually, but it's still her
Jen
fault.
would have talked to a singer eventually.
Yeah, she just made sure that it wiped out all of her people in the process. That's what Venli contributed to the desolation.
The thing is, we can never know what could have happened. Yes, Spren could have talked to some other singer later on down the road. That's irrelevant.
Give everyone Alamantic gold so we can read the other Stormlight archives.
Okay, yeah. But the fact remains that she is responsible for the desolation.
Yeah.
It was her ambition. Yeah, that is certainly true.
Well, like, the Spren would have found someone to work through no matter what, but she's the person they found. And that says something about her.
And I think that's important. Like,
Yeah.
she is accepting the blame for it.
Mm-hmm.
She is not putting it off.
No,
Moash.
it's totally true. I would be really disappointed if Moash actually got a real redemption arc.
Mm-hmm.
There is kind of a vacuum in the story now with Amaram dead that
Yeah.
Kaladin's main
that Kaladin
rival.
doesn't have a foil really other than himself.
Moash.
Yeah, so Moash is just in that role, right? That's a relationship that I want to see, and I want to see that be really in depth. And if there's going to be some final battle between those two, I want it to be really heartbreaking and not just like them being apart. Like it was actually really interesting us talking about Szeth and Kaladin's fight and how good that was, and maybe kind of why Amaram's fight kind of felt less good. I think it's pretty good, but it's not the same.
I actually had a thought.
Yes.
In a past episode, we had a discussion on what Kaladin's fourth oath is.
Yes.
And I believe one of the ideas I came up with was, I cannot protect people from the consequences of their own actions, which is something Kaladin is going to try and save Moash. No doubt.
That's true.
Yes.
Him coming to terms with the fact that I can't help Moash. He doesn't want to be helped.
Mm-hmm.
He is too far down that road. I can't help him. Is going to help Kaladin on his path.
Mm-hmm. And swearing the oath at that key moment. That would be cool.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually going to bring up, because I just typed this in the document because I came up
saw.
with it here. I was like, he's stealing my thought.
No.
I actually want to take it a different direction in that I'm on the same page, and I think Moash is going to be the catalyst for the fourth oath. But I think the fourth
oath... Which we got to get in book 4, right?
Yeah, like, we got to get it.
Yeah.
We got teased. It's going to happen.
We have to get it in the next book.
I think the fourth oath is perhaps the opposite of the third oath, the harder opposite, which the third oath was, I'll protect those I hate so long as it's right, or even if the one I hate is myself, in Teft's case. I think the opposite of that is, I will protect when it is right, even if it means hurting those I love.
Oh, I do like that.
Because he thought that he was like leaving Dalinar to die, but it was the right choice, but he couldn't do it. It would have hurt someone he loved. But maybe he realizes he needs to strike down Moash and fight against him, even though he still loves Moash deep down.
Oh, I
not
really
necessarily
like that.
Romantic love, before y'all accuse me. I am a shipper, but whatever. But just like, Moash was his one friend, like the only person in Bridge 4 who didn't.
It was heartbreaking at the end of Words of Radiance,
yeah.
and it's heartbreaking here.
And so something that's just occurring to me, so I'm a big fan of the idea of some master-student foils and potentially fights coming up in the future.
Okay, all right.
How cool it would be if a scene comes up where we have Moash and Kaladin squaring off, Nail and Szeth, and then the other one I have that also act as foils for each other, but might not be fighting in the same way, are Shallan and Yasna. Like, we have...
Yeah.
Like with like ghost blood stuff coming between them?
Yeah.
Exactly. So we have like 3 groups of master and students, all with 2 groups which are the same order, even though Moash is cheating to have that order's powers.
Hashtag Moash cheats.
Yeah.
How dare he?
But I think that, and it would be cool because then Kaladin would be the master in that situation, and for the most part, his kind of generation.
That's true. That would be
student.
Pretty cool.
Yeah,
that'd be pretty cool.
Also, Shallan and Yasna are the same order. Shallan's an Elsecaller. Weren't you paying attention?
Oh yeah, sorry. She's an Elsecaller.
yeah. Shallan's totally an Elsecaller.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Alyx, have you been reading Odium's intelligence again?
What do you mean? I'm definitely not reading things about Odium all the time.
Are you trying to get with him to get some inside info?
What's to say I haven't already?
Ooh. That's how you knew about all that void binding.
Yeah, I know. I know everything about void binding, man.
You just knew that. That.
Just remember, Alyx, whatever happens, it is your fault.
Basically.
That's true.
It is your fault.
Everything's my fault.
Yeah. Don't let Odium take your pain.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
I can't be blamed. It's not my fault.
It's not my fault, Odium's just so dashingly helpful.
There's no choice.
I really like that with Moash. I think that's how it has to be. I'm just thinking about that left turn now with this book. That maybe Brandon's just going to give us a super curveball, but some things are just too set up. Moash has the same abilities now as Kaladin. Mm-hmm. We have to have them fight at some point. It has to happen.
Like, I think that's like in writing excuses, they talk about like promises, right? And I think that is a promise. Mm-hmm. Like Brandon is making a promise with giving Moash the Honor Blade, and whether or not that promise plays out in a different way than we're expecting, I think something needs to come of this promise that he's making.
And it's also a promise when Kaladin just he is like unable to act and stop Moash.
Yeah.
Right? And Kaladin's got to come to terms with that, and that would be really great in a future conversation between the two of them. Yeah. That's just reminding me us reading about the Elhokar death scene. I remember reading an Amazon review, and this is not to criticize that Amazon review, but it said, and then Kaladin just let him die, and this is so, and that reviewer did not like that. But I don't know, when I read that, I was pretty invested that Kaladin was just so distraught by everything that he could not. Yeah, he couldn't do anything.
It was very believable. It was like even just his paralysis coming from, if I fight, my friends die. If I don't fight, my friends get killed. Like, yeah. The paralysis was very real for me, at least.
Yeah,
but there is a promise there that Kaladin and Moash are gonna face off again. It has to be the case.
I will say,
Kaladin be like, "Why are you fire? Like, that's dumb."
Yeah, right.
What was that?
In all of these, like mentor versus student potential fights, the key that everyone needs to remember is that you have to keep the high ground, and then it's over.
Hello there.
I went there.
Speaking of, actually, no.
Sand is coarse.
Well, no, there's just a character that reminds me a lot of Moash.
Oh, yeah?
In The Last Jedi.
Oh,
that I feel very similarly about.
I know. I wanted to talk about... We can't do that.
We can't. This is not a Star Wars spoiler podcast.
No, I know, but
we're safe.
It's really relevant. But,
before you all turn it off, it's okay. We're not going to say anything.
Yeah. We're not going to talk.
If you watch the movie, you know who I'm talking about. Like,
if you see Force Awakens, you know who we're talking about.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
Pretty much.
Hey, Kaladin, pro tip. If you are on another planet, let's say, and a giant base is sucking up a star, and you go walk on a bridge that has nothing below it, and you're trying to get Moash back to the good side, just, make sure you lash yourself upward. That's all I'm saying. Just,
solve that problem. We fixed you guys.
Just pro tip. Also, just to remind you guys all of Shardcast pro tips. If you are a Radiant and you are swearing your oath, make sure you say it really fast so Moash doesn't come kill you.
Finley
so it's very important.
Interrupted too. I thought Brandon was going to do it to me twice in that book, and I was like, "Oh no, you do not! You do not take Finley's oaths away from her too. You already did this with Elhokar."
Right. And then Odium came and stabbed him.
One more thing. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, go for it.
Okay. One quick thing. I don't want to get too off topic, but
we just talked about Star Wars, Matt.
Yeah, since we are talking though a bit about Elhokar's death, it is interesting at the end of the book. Hoid picks up Elhokar's cryptic. And in the first book, Hoid is constantly hanging out around Elhokar.
He's the king.
That's true.
I had not put that together.
Right?
Oh, you're earning your money today, Matt. Thanks for
I just,
good idea right there.
You know, because like
you
kind of wonder you kind of wonder why, and you know, Hoid's like Yolish light weaving doesn't seem to like work as well, at least on Roshar. Like he's always trying, and then in the scene with Shallan, he's like, "Oh, could I have some help?" Like with your Rosharan light weaving to make this.
Is that your interpretation of that? I don't know if I buy that.
Well,
I didn't get that.
Definitely like
it seems like Shallan is able to do things, at least on Roshar, that Hoid is not able to do, or Wit is not able to do.
Or it's more difficult to do.
Or it's more difficult. Like he kind of like tries to spiral something up out of the dust, and then he says, "Could I have some help?" And then she makes like the illusions.
And he can just spin off of that.
Yeah, and then he kind of takes control of her illusions, which is... Anyway.
The idea I just had with that is I was just thinking about how Radiant's in swearing oaths, they get a lot more powerful with their levels. Whereas,
good point.
like, Zeth is not... Like, he's very impressive, but he's no Kaladin. After swearing ideals, Kaladin. Right? And so I was just thinking that maybe the more natural state of light weaving, maybe the Hoid light weaving, would the Yolish light weaving that he has would basically be the same if someone had Ash's honor blade. Like that honor blade without the oaths to like really bring it up a few levels. I don't know.
Yeah.
That doesn't need to be
perhaps. But going back to the Hoid hanging around Elhokar, it's important to note that Hoid doesn't always know why he needs to be in a place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, he knew he had to be close to Elhokar, but he might not have known why.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And so it's like, yes, like he was there to take up Elhokar's cryptic, but it took a while to get there.
Yeah. The other thing that could possibly be why he's recruiting a cryptic, Shallan's light weaving is quieter somehow.
Quieter?
In that the Kaladin can't use surges in Kholinar because they can detect him.
Okay, that's what you mean.
Yeah,
okay,
that sort
gotcha.
of thing. It's less detectable, and since Hoid has talked about like Race would destroy this planet if he finds me, I wonder if it's more of a way to blend in, like it'll feel like Roshar light weaving, so it won't be detectable, as opposed to like maybe
that's interesting.
Maybe the bronze pulses of Yolish light weaving feel different, and Odium's going to seek that out or to pull Allomancy in.
He's also getting soul casting too, so he's like adding to his like arsenal of.
I feel like Hoid would. Oh man, Hoid. I'm just imagining like 5 books from now, and it on like Scadrial, and Hoid's like, "Hey, I'm soul casting." Maybe not Scadrial, and just like how crazy of stories he can tell when he just soul cast crap. But that's true. That's just reminding me of in the first letter in Oathbringer, the Shard there, who we'll talk about probably next time. Because we have some words of Brandon on what that shard is, and we're totally right. Oh snap!
Well, I was totally right.
We all agree.
We were in agreement,
basically,
to a certain extent.
I was just playing devil advocate, Ian. I was pretty
credit.
in. That's fine. That's fine. You can have the credit. That's fine. I'm just saying I agree. That shard just immediately knew when Hoid came to their land. So how is Hoid protecting himself on Roshar?
Because it might be different when there's multiple shards. You know, like there's more like some interference.
And Hoid is also very interested in not being detected.
Yeah, probably in that other planet he doesn't care nearly as much. That's true. But I just don't know how much Yolish light weaving would like set Odium off, because he doesn't seem particularly annoyed with using Yolish light weaving. Like if that was as bad as Kholinar was, Hoid would not be using light weaving, right?
Yeah.
Any final thoughts on Moash, Elhokar, and whatever the crap we're talking about? It was relevant. It was relevant.
Yeah. We strayed a little, but it was good.
We're doing some theorizing, and stuff leads to other stuff. Any last thoughts?
I don't think so.
I'm excited to read more Moash. I will say that.
You're excited to read more Vyre.
Fire, yeah.
No, I'm not used to that. I need a book with a lot of Moash viewpoints as Vyre for me to get that in my brain. Because this podcast is going to be called Moash, not Vyre.
Yeah, and I am hoping, because I am a sucker for tragedy, that he comes back to Moash before, so you get that glimmer of hope that he is going to be redeemed before he's brought down and. By
and
himself.
Maybe Vyre has a crush on someone other than who Moash has a crush. Okay, sorry.
Oh no! Your carapace is so.
We already did that podcast.
Red.
We already did it.
I'm just imagining him romancing singers now. So just to add.
Leshwi's right there.
God, they had such great chemistry. She gave him a sharp blade, an honor blade. It's great.
She lifted him into the air and maybe kind of threatened to drop him and kill him if.
She swept him off his feet.
Exactly. Okay, I can't top that. We need to end this podcast.
And with that, guys, I think that's it. I'm excited to see more Moash in the future. But we hope you enjoyed this slightly shorter podcast. But they're not all. We want to keep them under 90 minutes, guys. Just 45 minutes to 90 minutes. Usually, probably 60 to 90 minutes. Just so you know, not everyone has time for long podcasts. I like listening to
7-hour podcasts. 7-hour podcasts.
Not everyone
by
has time to record super long podcasts.
By Stormlight 10, our podcast is just like, we have so much to talk about.
And holy 10 hours.
I actually did listen to a Last Jedi podcast that was 4 hours long. An hour and a half longer than the movie.
Oh my goodness.
It was really good. So that could come eventually. We just need to have a podcast longer than the audiobook of
my
latest Stormlight book.
I think we might die.
Probably.
Well, we don't have to record at the same time.
Yeah, you have to record it in multiple sittings.
Yeah. Anyway, come see us at 17shard.com. Join our Discord. It's in the description on YouTube. You can subscribe to our podcast. A subscribe thing is in the description. It's in the sidebar of SoundCloud as well. Just so you know, it's always been there. It's not on iTunes.
Subscribe on SoundCloud and YouTube, so you definitely don't miss it.
Actually, Ian, you follow on SoundCloud. You don't subscribe. Okay. What?
Fine.
Come on.
Special words.
Come on. I know. But feel free to do that. You can come hang out with us in Discord and tell us how we're wrong or how great we are. Either's fine, I guess. Maybe the second one. It's pretty cool. But the first one's fine too. But comment below on all your thoughts and feels on how you hate Moash. Oh! That's one other thing, right? There is a subreddit.
The Reddit.
If you hate Moash, there is a subreddit.
Of like-minded individuals.
It's not called Storm Moash. Just replace that with the relevant swear, and you'll get there.
The Earth curse there for that.
Yeah, the Earth curse. Yeah.
We're not going to link that.
We're all
one.
very
you
clean here.
Yeah.
You can find it. Come on, Discord. We'll link it to you. That's fine.
We're not endorsing anything on there either.
No. But if you really hate Moash, there are many outlets. You can come to the forums. You can go to that Reddit where you can just get your rage out, and that's totally fine. It's really easy to hate him. That's totally fine. And with that, we'll see you guys next week, probably. And I don't want to... I'm pretty confident that next time we're going to start talking about Oathbringer Tour of Words of Brandon and much analysis there. And there is so much to talk about there. And that'll be a long podcast, so hey.
Woo.
Yep.
So see you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Caw.